recording as well, okay? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move forward. All right, so here is the mission and vision of our district, and we always like to start with this because it allows us to be able to have sight to see, right? So we like that good old vision to be able to be in a space where you're able to see what our goal as a district is for your students, right? And so when we're looking at the vision, our goal is to transform the learning and life outcomes of your baby. That is our goal, is to transform the learning and life outcomes of all of the children in GCS. And by all children, we're talking about your first grader, your second grader, your juniors that are out there, your seventh graders, eighth graders, is to be able to transform. And so, of course, you see that mission, Guilford County students will graduate as responsible citizens prepared to succeed in higher education or in the career of their choice. So we like to keep that mission and the vision at the forefront in everything that we do so that we can remain focused on the goal and vision of our district. When we talk about SEL, which Cynthia mentioned, is social emotional learning. When we talk about social emotional learning and what that is and what our vision is for our district, our vision is that through social emotional learning, Guilford County Schools nurture safe, supportive, and equitable learning spaces where adults feel confident, empowered, and responsible for helping students develop into productive and responsible citizens who thrive in college, career, and life. So Cynthia, let's unpack that just a little bit. What's standing out with you when you hear this SEL vision statement? What are some things that stand out?
Sure. So one of the things that stands out for me is that it's about adults feeling confident, empowered, and responsible for helping students. And so when we began this work and started focusing on adults, it was important to us that we started with talking to the adults that touch the lives of our kids, our teachers, our bus drivers, the cafeteria workers, any adult that works in Guilford County schools. We wanted them to dig into their own social and emotional development so that they could bring in front of their kids good models. For one, they could be good models, but they could also bring their whole selves in a space, in a place where they could be vulnerable and free to express themselves, and then also be able to teach our kids. And so that adults also means you, which is why we're glad to be here with you, is helping our families, our parents, and our community members. And so we don't just stop our work with GCS staff, but any adults who are interested in developing their social emotional skills, we are here to help.
Yes, I love that. I just really love that piece where adults feel confident. Like that always just stands out to me because sometimes I don't feel confident. You know, I'm like, oh my gosh, did I do this right as a parent? I think we talked about that earlier with you know, with our earlier group of parents, but sometimes it's like, gosh, did I do that right? Or, you know, you kind of just second guess yourself of like you hope that by, you know, the time they get to, I know when my daughter graduated from high school a year or so ago, one of my first things was like, oh my gosh, did I help her become like a responsible citizen who can thrive in college, career, and life? That was one of the questions I asked myself as she's like graduating. She's walking across stage and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, is she responsible? Is she like, is she going to be able to survive? And so that's one of the things that always stands out for me, is just really giving parents the tools to be able to feel confident and empowered. So I love, love, love our SEL vision. All right, let's move forward. All right, so over the course of today, what we hope to accomplish is to talk to you about what is SEL, which we started to do, why we're doing SEL as a district, how we began this work in GCS, and then like what are some things that you can do at home that can begin to impact your child's social and emotional learning, and to just do it in an intentional way. So that's a pretty hefty list of things that we have there. So we promise you whatever we don't get to, that's one thing that's good about having a series, is if we don't get to it this week, we promise, it will be something that comes up. But this is our goal for our time together today. All right, so one of the things that we'll do, and Cynthia will talk a little bit more, or one of us will talk a little bit more about this later on, but is an SEL opener. And so SEL openers are always a space to allow us just to get every perspective in the room. And we do this with the educators. We like to do this with students. And so tonight, we're going to do it with you, right? And so an SEL opener is just a way for us to just, check in with each other and, again, be able to get every voice in the room if we can. And so our SEL opener for tonight is just, how are you doing? We want to know, how are you doing? So this mood meter was developed by Mark Brackett, who is the director of emotional intelligence at Yale. And so he developed this mood meter as a way for us to just be able to check in with each other. And we'll talk a little bit later about how you can utilize this mood meter with your students at home. But I really want you to look at this mood meter, and you might identify with a word, you might identify with a color. But we want you to first take a moment and look at the mood meter and choose the color or the word that you identify the most with. And then if you could utilize a different tab on your screen or utilize your phone, we would like for you to go to menti.com, www.menti.com, and then utilize the code down at the bottom. Utilize the code at the bottom and record where you are currently. If you could record where you are currently by utilizing that code, we would love it. If you don't have access to be able to utilize a different tab on your computer, you can record your responses in the chat box. So if you need to use the chat box, you can, but we would really love, so we can get a general census of where we are as a group, for you to utilize the Menti if possible, okay? So you go to www.menti.com, and I'll give you just a moment just to look at the mood meter. Just a moment just to look at the mood meter. So again, you can identify with the color, or you can also identify with the word, but when you go to the Menti, the only thing you're going to be able to record is the actual color that you're in. And so we'll discuss that in just a moment.
I apologize, my link's not working. I'll go a different way. We'll go this way. All right, do you see the Menti?
Yes. All right, and so if you could just record your responses there. We see some responses are coming in, so thank you. Let me go ahead and put my response in. Cynthia, have you recorded your response?
I did. I am green.
You're in green.
I'm in green. I'm feeling good. It's not as much energy because it's the end of the day, but I am in a good space.
And I always like to point this out because we're still learning Menti and being able to utilize that. We do know our colors, and we recognize that green is showing up as pink right now. But we do know our colors, and we just wanted to point that out to you. But we haven't figured out how to make Menti the colors that we want. So sometimes it works out, like in the other colors, and sometimes it's like, So thank you. So far, we have 19 responses and represent 21 now. You all are rocking it out with recording your responses, utilizing this Mentimeter. We love to utilize this because it's a way for us to collect responses anonymously. So thank you so much for sharing. Any responses in the chat box? Let me take a look and see.
There's just one yellow in the chat box.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Add that
awesome.
to the yellow.
Awesome. So we have quite a bit of people that are in red, right? So that's the leader right now. Then we have then after that it's green. And then we have quite a few people. It's almost like a tie for green and yellow. So that's good, right? And then we have a few people in the blue, right? And so if, Cynthia, if you could go back and you can keep letting those come in.
Okay.
Letting those come in. Please feel free to record your responses. Thank you for doing that. But we're going to go back to that mood meter for just a moment. And so with this mood meter, what we're saying is that like if you find yourself in red, right? So red is high energy and not so pleasant, right? So you're just kind of like you're feeling frustrated, angry, restless, fuming, worried, annoyed, all these things. So that's like high energy, right? So then blue is more low energy, but you're still not in the best of space, right? And so then there's green, and green is kind of low energy, but you're in a pretty good space. And then yellow is high energy positive, high energy pleasant, right? And so what I typically like to be in is green or yellow. Usually in the height of my day, I'm in yellow. And so if I'm ever in a space where I'm not feeling it or I'm like kind of decreasing. I felt myself. I've been in meetings since 8:30 this morning. And so then Cynthia and she has too, right? So we decided that we would have a meeting at like 4:15. And we're both in the meeting just looking at each other because we're like, okay, we have another meeting at 6, and I really want to be able to give you all everything that I have that's left, right? And so we're in this meeting, we're just looking at each other, and finally we had to say, you know what? Like, we're not being productive. Like, let's just try again because we were meeting about something else. Let's just try this again tomorrow, right? And so it's about thinking about having a moment to check in with yourself and see what supports do you need, what do you need to help you get to a more productive space. So if I'm in yellow, if I'm in blue and you like to be in green, it's about what is it that I need to do? Who do I need to call so that I can move to a different space? What supports do I need to put in place so that I can move to a different space? And so it's not saying that we're not saying that at any point in time that it's not okay to be in that red or that blue space. It's just a matter of making sure that you're checking in with yourself and figuring out how you can not stay there, right? Cynthia, would you add anything to it? I feel like you do such an amazing job with describing the mood meter. I feel like I'm leaving something out.
No, I think you said everything, but I do want to add, and I was answering questions, so I may have missed you saying this, but it does concern me to see so many respondents in red because that's intense. There's intensity behind it. And so,
Right.
blue is unpleasant, red is unpleasant, but there's intensity behind it. So you do want to intervene quickly, as Latrell described, because if you stay in red too long without having strategies for getting out of that space, then it can begin to impact you at a deeper level. It can impact you physically. And so you want to think about some self-care activities. We're going to talk about some today. We'll talk about some when we get to self-management. And so there's some strategies to use, but we know we're all in a space right now. So like she said, there's no judgment, but you do want to be careful about how long you stay in a high intensity negative space.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll share some strategies that will help you today. And then we have some other strategies, but you might want to start tracking. Is one of the strategies we share is tracking your moods, whether it's a daily journal or throughout the day, just to see if you have patterns, because that also helps to identify your triggers and to identify if your emotions are causing negative behaviors on the other side. But like I said, we'll talk about those in a couple of other sessions, so I don't want to give too much away right now, but I do want you to know that we see you. We ask for your responses because we care. So we do see your responses.
Yeah. And we spent just being completely vulnerable, and we'll have vulnerable moments on here. But being completely vulnerable, there was like a couple of weeks where Cynthia and I both were in blue and red. Like we were kind of like just going back and forth. And that's, was really important for us to be able to figure out like how we can get see, my college student is peeking through the screen, so I apologize. But I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So I apologize in advance. I'm so sorry. So she's like, I thought no one could see me. See, this is SEL at home uncensored, right? So I am welcoming you all into my life right now. It's after hours. Here we are. But we were there, and we had to figure out like how we could get out of that space, right? And so we would lean in on each other. So we will talk about that a little bit more and how important that is. So thank you so much for everyone that shared. All right, so what I now want you to do is take a moment and I want you to think about social emotional learning, or as we call it, the nickname for it, SEL. So, what comes to mind when you hear the words SEL? And I would love it if anybody wants to unmute and share. You can feel free to do that. I would love for a couple of people to unmute and share what comes to mind when they hear the word social emotional learning, or you can share in the chat box. But I want to give you about 30 seconds to respond to that. So, if you could do that right now. And again, I would love for a couple of you to unmute and share. Do you have any takers that want to share, unmute and share?
I'll share.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, when I think about the term social and emotional learning, I think about the fact that as parents and helping our children, we need to help them develop socially and emotionally, and that has a lot to do with how they interact with others and how we support them emotionally. Finding the right way to interact with others and finding the right way, and which can vary by person, to support our students emotionally and support ourselves emotionally, especially in the times that we're living in right now, is very important. And so with the fact that we're bringing the learning process into this with schooling, just really tying all of those things together, how we can support our children to continue to grow and interact with others, really developing that the social part of it, but also helping them to be well-rounded emotionally and how to deal with the different emotions that they may be having.
Deanna, we putting you on the team. Girl,
Wow.
we putting you on the team. That was beautiful. I love it. We are putting you on the team. Anybody else want to unmute and share? Thank you so much.
There's a couple in the chat. There are a couple in the chat box. I'll share while we're waiting for others. Adve, please forgive me if I'm saying your name wrong, said, care for yourself and care for others with a social and acceptable manner. Leslie said the ability to regulate and identify emotions through the course of their day and how they engage with people in their environments. And Alyssa said the process of thought to help children and ourselves to manage the emotion and positive relationships. Y'all are nailing
Oh my gosh,
this.
I wish I had a microphone so I could be like drops mic on all of y'all, because everybody gets the nail on the head. Yes, absolutely. Christina says self-awareness. Come on. Yes, absolutely. Yes. I love it. All right, so we could go ahead and move forward. And so what we want to do now is just take a moment and anchor our learning into level set, like when we're talking about social emotional learning. And you all really defined it like beautifully. Like it was amazing how much you talked about what social emotional learning is. But this is a definition that we'll utilize when we talk about social emotional learning, right? And we've adopted this definition from our friends at CASEL, and CASEL is the collaboration for academic, social, and emotional learning. And so CASEL helps coach us as we're coaching the educators in our district and coaching the parents in our district on what it means to implement systemic SEL and what it means to like just really provide foundational learning opportunities for staff, students, and parents, right? So when we talk about social emotional learning, this is what we're talking about. And it says that SEL is the process through which children and adults acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions. Check. So if you thought anything that SEL was anything that dealt with emotions, you are right. You are correct. It says set and achieve positive goals, right? So if you thought it went anything with goal setting, anything like that, then yes. Feel and show empathy for others. So how are we developing our compassion for the people that are around us? That's what social emotional learning is. It's also how are we establishing and maintaining positive relationships. So even as a parent, we have to be thinking about like how we're establishing and maintaining positive and rewarding relationships with our kids, right? And then the last thing is make responsible decisions. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about SEL. And one of the things that I love, love, love about this definition, and I always yell it, tell it, email it, all of that, when we're talking about this definition, is because it's a process. And Cynthia, what do we mean when we say that it's a process?
So when we talk about SEL as a process, it means it is a skill set that we never master, that we continue through this process throughout our lives. And so we call it social and emotional development for adults, because we're practicing in this work. But as you experience life, as you experience ups and downs and different emotions, your skill set changes and modifies for that. So you're constantly in this state of growing your social and emotional development. It is a process for our students in that they don't just experience SEL at a section of their day. They don't have a 20-minute block of time for SEL and then we're done with that. That process permeates their day in everything that we do. And so that makes it a process.
I love it. And then I feel like someone said, Alyssa, please forgive me if I said it wrong, but Alyssa says the process of thought to help children and ourselves.
That's right.
To manage the emotions and positive relationships. So Alyssa said it's about the kids and it's about us, right? So what I love is that it says through which children and adults, right? So social emotional learning is not just about our babies. Social emotional learning is not just about your elementary student. Social emotional learning is not just about your middle school student, not just about your high school student, but it's about us in our 20s. Oh, I guess, no, I'm in my 30s. Not just about us in our 30s. It's about us in our 40s, our 50s, 60s, wherever you fall, it's about us too. Like, how are we? Like, we have to constantly be in a space where we're checking our emotions too, right? And so this is what we're talking about when we're talking about social emotional learning. All right, let's go to the next slide. So when we talk about social emotional learning, this is the framework that we're utilizing, right? And so what we're talking about is self-awareness. So somebody said self-awareness. Was it Christina? Did Christina say self-awareness?
It was Christina.
Pat yourself on the back, girl. You said self-awareness. So when we're talking about social emotional learning, we're talking about when you know yourself well, that's self-awareness, right? But like self-awareness is also about like your ability to be in a space where you are identifying your emotions. So you know what? I'm feeling frustrated right now. I'm feeling like joyful right now. I'm feeling disappointed. Whatever, being able to do that mood meter and recognize where you were in that state, that's self-awareness, right? So self-awareness is also about having an accurate self-perception and being able to help our kids with that. Knowing to be able to talk about like what your challenges are, but also the areas that are their strengths for you. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about self-awareness. We're talking about self-management. This was the one that I struggled with before. Prior quarantine, I struggled with self-management, right? But I've tried to get it together, y'all, because when you're in the house for like 5-6 months, you can't just keep going to the fridge. You got to figure out something else that you can do, right? And so when we're talking about self-management, it's really about impulse control. The things you want to say, but you choose not to say. The things that you want to do, but you choose not to do. So it's about self-motivation, self-regulation. So I said in self-awareness, it was identifying emotions, and self-management is about what? Managing those emotions. And then we move on to social awareness. And then social awareness is really about our ability to be empathetic, our ability to appreciate diversity, have respect for others, perspective taking, because y'all, sometimes as parents it's hard for us to take on the perspectives of our kids because we're like, we've been there, done that, got the rainbow, got the fluorescent t-shirt and everything. Like, we already know it's going to be an epic fail, so we're like, we don't want to hear your perspective because we already know like what the end's going to be, so we don't want to hear that, right? But social awareness is really about perspective taking. And then when we're talking about relationship skills is how do we listen? Do we listen with the intent of wanting to say something back? Are we in a space where we're, teaching our kids how to work collaboratively in teams, thinking about how it is that they communicate? And that's where that's what relationship skills, the skills that are in relationship skills. And so then as we move to responsible decision making is like the threader. So responsible decision-making, we always say, should show up in every single area. So when we're talking about responsible decision-making, it's thinking about how it is that We identify problems, analyze problems. How is it that we're reflective and thinking about those problems? And then thinking about what is my ethical responsibility to myself in the situation? What is my ethical responsibility to my kid in this situation? What is my ethical responsibility to those that are around me? And Cynthia, do you mind talking about the outer parts of the circle?
I don't mind at all. And so when
Okay.
we're talking about systemic SEL and SEL as a process, we're saying that our children and ourselves, we're experiencing these competencies in all aspects of our lives. And so we have to develop these skills in all aspects of our lives. And so when we look at those blue circles, we're saying, what does SEL look like in the classroom? How do we help students to apply all those skills? And we use curriculum and instruction to help do that. But that's how we bring it in, both intentionally teaching these skills, but then embedding them throughout the curriculum and throughout their day. And how is it that our children experience SEL skills within the school? And so that comes through in our school-wide practices and policies. How is it that students have a sense of belonging and they have the opportunity for voice in both the classroom and school, where they feel like this is a safe space to be vulnerable, to share their emotions, and to learn what to do with those emotions? And then in the homes and communities, how do students experience these competencies in their homes and the communities? And we want that to mirror. So families, you have your own way of teaching these skills to your children, but then we also want to partner with you so that we're reflecting each other. So you're reflecting what we're showing in school, and then school is reflecting at home, and we're taking in both sets of voices. And so we partner intentionally with our families and communities for the betterment of our students. And so all of that together is the picture of the definition of SEL, and it's how we make it systemic so that we're all experiencing SEL in a similar fashion so that we all get the best out of it. All of our kids get the best out of it. And I shared earlier, it's like comparing literacy and math and social emotional learning. All of us as educators try our best to help make our students as well-rounded as possible. But doing it in a systemic way, we're going to get the better benefits. Like, we don't just teach whatever we feel like teaching and reading. We don't teach what we feel like teaching in math. We teach according to a plan, according to a scope and sequence. And that's the same thing that we're trying to do in our district with social and emotional learning.
Are there any questions about, thank you, Cynthia. Are there any questions about what we've said so far? Any questions, anything that you all need for us to go into a little bit more detail with? All right, awesome. All right, so now we're going to take a quick assessment. All right, a quick assessment. And so we want you to grab a sheet of paper, or you can utilize your phone if that's easy for you too. But we're just going to make a statement, say a statement, and then we want you to answer true or false for that. All right. Don't overthink it. What we really want you to think about is the consistency in it, right? And, you know, I told the group earlier today, because we do this at 11:30 on Mondays as well. And I told them earlier, I was like, you know what? This may just be like just for today. Like, you know what? I am able to identify and recognize and name my emotions today, right? But tomorrow it may be something different. But, you know, we want you to really think about this in a, like, if you, the consistency of it. Like, are you consistently able to do that? And so we're going to read a statement, and we just want you to answer true or false on your sheet of paper. So the first one is self-awareness. So remember, self-awareness was how do we identify our emotions? How are we in a space where we have an accurate self-perception? How we are able to be able to acknowledge what our strengths are and know what our limitations are, our self-confidence, all right? So the first statement is, I am able to identify, recognize, and name my emotions in the moment. So true or false? All right, next question. I feel confident that I can handle whatever comes along with calm, self-assurance, and a relaxed presence. All right, next statement. I know and am realistic about my strengths and limitations. All right, Cynthia.
All right, so now we want you to think about self-management. How do you see yourself performing in self-management? And so self-management is how you handle stress, how you manage your emotions, how you set and achieve goals. And so here are 3 questions to help you think about that. I find ways to manage my emotions and channel them in useful ways. True or false? I accept new challenges and adjust to change. That one is interesting for me. I'm sorry. I don't know if I can say true or false. I balance my work life with personal renewal time. That's an important one. I balance
Right.
my work life with personal renewal time.
All right, social awareness. So remember, social awareness is about perspective taking, respect for others, appreciating diversity, and thinking about that in terms of your parenting style and skills. So here, I listen actively and grasp another person's perspective and feelings. So in your household, are you listening actively and grasping your kids' perspective and feelings? True or false? My kids probably would say that most times that might be false for me. So I'm a work in progress. All right. I believe that in general, people are doing their best and I expect the best of them. All right. True or false? All right. We're going to move on.
All right, relationships. How well do you work with others and solve conflict and get to know other people? Listening and communication fit here as well. I foster an emotionally nurturing and safe environment for my child. True or false? I am able to openly admit my mistakes and shortcomings to others in my household. I know the values of everyone in my household and they know mine. I don't know if I can mark true for that one. I deal with conflict by listening to the feelings from everyone and helping them understand different perspectives.
All right, and so now responsible decision making. So remember, responsible decision making is our ability to our our ability to make constructive choices, right? So when we're thinking about responsible decision making, we have to be in a space, right, where we're identifying, analyzing, and being reflective about the decisions that we're making, and then thinking about our ethical responsibility to ourselves and our ethical responsibility to others, right? So here are the statements. I am able to define the core of the problem and differentiate them from solution options. All right, true or false? Second question, I involve others to generate multiple solutions. So you're seeking out resources. You involve in others so that you can come up with multiple solutions. Number 3, I find practical and respectful ways to overcome barriers. And then the final question or statement is, I treat other people the way I would want to be treated. All right. Thank you so much. And hold on to your reflections. Go ahead, Cynthia. Sorry.
That's what I was going to say, what you said. So hold on to those thoughts. We're going to do something with them in just a second.
All right. So now what we want you to do, now what we like for you to do is we're going to do heart of hearts tips. And tips is one of our engaging practices. And so with tips is typically it's an opportunity for us to give you time to think. It's an opportunity for us to give you time to ink some things down, pair up, and then share. So tonight we are going to utilize the breakout room feature of Zoom. So we're going to put you in groups. But the first thing we want to do is give you an opportunity to think about what it is that you want to be true for your child when they graduate from their prospective school. So even if they're in elementary school, we want you to think about what it is that you want to be true for them, right? And so we want you to write down 4 to 6 adjectives that describe what will be true. For example, if I had to think of some things that I want to be true for my kids when they graduate, is that I want them to be thoughtful. I want them to be kind. I want them to be respectful. I want them to be resilient, right? And so out of those 4 or 5 things, I wasn't counting as I was talking, but out of those 4 or 5 things that I said, what I want most for them is for them to be able to be resilient. I want when life knocks them down, I want them to be able to be in a space where they can get back up, right? So I want you to choose the one word that best describes like what it is, that the one thing that you want. And then we're going to pair up and share our reflections on those statements, as well as pair and share like what it is that we want to be true for our students when they graduate. So we'll give you like 2 minutes just to write down your thoughts there. You do not have to record your responses in the chat box because we will be breaking out into rooms in just a few moments. Any questions about what I've asked for you to do? All right, and while they're doing that, Cynthia, you want to share?
Sure. Mine changes all the time, but this time I wrote down, I want my children to be happy, resilient, kind, independent, and reflective. And the one I'll highlight is reflective, because I want them to be able to think through when things don't go the way they want them to go, to think through how they can process and improve and make changes.
Yeah, that's so good. So good. I want so many. It's just like, it's hard to nail it down to one thing, right? I want them to be independent thinkers and like advocates for themselves and other people. And yeah, it's so many different things.
All right.
All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna chat, and we're gonna give you like 7 minutes. We're gonna break you out into rooms to talk with each other and just to chat about what it is that we want to be true. So Cynthia, there is 39 people in here.
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go.
You're ready to go? Awesome. So we're now going to break you out into rooms. And again, we want you to talk about those statements. When I was making those statements and asking you, you know, or as like doing your own quick self-assessment of where you were, self-awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making, all of that. Just what came up for you, if there were any reflections from that. And then as well, share your 1 word or 2 words or whatever it is that you want to share with your partners in the group. So if you could do that as it relates to what it is that you want to be true for your child when they graduate. So we're going to go ahead and break you out into rooms. You do have to click join breakout room.
So I want to make the group smaller and the time shorter so everybody can have time to share, but we're running out of time. So let's do 5 instead of 7 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, here we go.
And I'll join my breakout room because last time there was only 1 person in my room, so I'll go ahead and join mine.
Yeah, there's only 1 person in your room right now too. So if you're going to join, that's
Are
fine.
you gonna put, you want to put them somewhere else?
I can move them.
Okay.
I lost it. There it is. This thing moves so.
All right, and for the people that are remaining, if there's anything that we can do to assist you with joining your breakout room, please let us know, and we can help you try to troubleshoot with you so you can get to the appropriate room.
Let me go to this room and let him know I'm going to move him. Hi, Bryce.
Oh, hey.
I see you by yourself, so I'm going to switch your room if you give me 1 second, okay?
All right.
All right. I definitely want you to have somebody to talk to. I didn't want you to be shocked, so I wanted to come tell you first.
Me, myself, and I were having a lovely chat, Cynthia.
I bet you were. Right back. Be Okay, welcome back. We hope that was enough time for you all to share. We know it was quick. Hopefully you'll come back each week and have more time to engage with each other. And hopefully while you were in the room, you had a chance to talk about the self-assessment and your tips, your adjectives to describe what you wanted for your kids. And just to sum that part up before we move on is when you were looking at the self-assessment, it gave you a chance to really think about what's included in the competencies as it relates to you. It probably helped you see more of what we meant by it's a process that we continue to develop, because you may have found some areas of strength and you may have found some areas of growth opportunities. And that's a part of why it's a process that's ongoing as we continue to grow. And then when you were doing the adjectives about your kids, what you wanted for your kids, that was a chance for you to see that there's more. The reason we're doing this work is not just, there's more to life than the academics. There's more that our kids need to be well-rounded. And so you demonstrated that by sharing for your kids. And we also, in a lot of our sessions, talk about what businesses and companies want as well, because we're preparing our kids for life. We won't do that in this session. This video, we're going to move past it. We didn't do it this morning either. We're going to save it for our next session. And it talks just a little bit more about the value of having a commitment to SEL in our schools. So we will come back to that. And this slide, we're going to move on past, but it's a little bit of data about why administrators, parents, and teachers all think that SEL is valuable. But I think we've talked about that enough today, because we want to make sure these last few minutes that we're able to get to some practical strategies.
Cynthia, we can't see your screen.
Oh, wow. And I'm just sliding right on through. Okay, give me 1 second. Thank you for that. So you don't even know the video that you just missed. Y'all see it now?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So we're going to try to get into some practical strategies so you can have something to go home with. And so we try to make sure each time we do something to help you reflect on your own development and something practical to help you with your families and your children. And so one of the things that we teach in our schools is about the 3 signature practices. And those 3 practices are openers, engaging practices, and optimistic closures. And these practices together are intentional ways to help students and adults engage in SEL in a real life way. And so with these practices, we're building community, we're building relationships, we're connecting to the competencies, and so we're helping students to have access and voice to their learning. And so we could say more about these, but I want to go to the next slide where we say what that looks like at home. And so what we have done is we've translated those 3 ideas into ways to do it at home. So the 3 signature practices at home, we have equated the SEL opener to the start of the day, the engaging practices for the during the day, and then the optimistic closures for the ending of the day. And so when we do SEL practices at home, we do SEL openers. We're inviting people in. We're setting the tone. So when you came on today, you probably heard either music or you heard chit chat. And both of those things brought a welcoming environment, we hope, made you feel welcome and included and invited into the space. But we also did an SEL opener, which was the mood meter, which helped us to get to know each other a little bit better. It helped you to share a little bit of yourself. Because we did it with the mood meter, everyone had the opportunity to get their voice heard. And so those are examples of openings and welcomes. So at home, what that might look like is how is it that we open ourselves up to the day? So with our families, how is it that we start the day to get them into a productive space? And so 3 strategies that we've talked about is having a positive morning routine, whatever that looks like for your family, whatever that routine is. But if it's a routine for children and probably adults as well, but routine gives children a sense of calm. It gives them some predictability when they don't have to guess what's about to happen. When they know what's about to happen, it actually calms. We could go into a lot of the brain talk, but it calms the amygdala and it helps their brain to calm down and get ready for a day. So whatever that routine is, whether it's get up, greet each other, and hug each other, and each of my kids are slightly different in the way that they wake up. And so my youngest, she wakes up ball of energy. She's usually up first, and she has to be greeted with a hug and a kiss and a how did you sleep. My other two, they wake up a little more subdued. And so they need a minute before they have people in their faces. So they typically in the morning, they'll start with their grooming before they come down and they'll speak, but they need a minute before they actually engage with how's everything going, how'd you sleep? But it's still the same routine. They each have their own routine, but it's the same every day. And so we know what to expect from them and they know what to expect from us. And that does start your day in a calmer fashion. Excuse me, setting an intention for the day. Setting intentions and goals are always positive because it's showing your children how to approach challenges. It's showing them how to set and achieve goals, which is self-management. But having a conversation in the morning, and even if it's not every morning, maybe every Monday morning, the start of the week, or every Sunday morning, what fits for your family, but having them focus in on an intention gives them a goal or a challenge. My youngest thrives the most off of that, which is kind of surprising. But when you say, what do we want to accomplish today, or what's our goal for today, she takes that on as a challenge and she is gone and she's going to check in. I don't have to check in with her. She's going to check in with me to let me know she's doing her goal. Other children might need more prompting or more suggestions, and it doesn't have to be a big lofty goal. It's whatever it is that you as the parent and the child have decided that is a good intention for them. One of my kids has to have an intention, well, not right now, but at a time period, we had to set an intention that she would say positive things to the people around her, or say kind things. She had to intentionally think about being kind because she was being a little, I don't know what's the word, but y'all know what the word is. But she needed some help with focusing on saying kind words. And so we did that for a while. And then the morning check-ins is about checking in with emotions. We talked about that at the top with the mood meter. It's so important. I mean, that's the whole E in social emotional learning. It's so important to understand our emotions, and it's a big science of understanding our emotions. And so if you start your day or with your child sharing how they're feeling, or periodically throughout the day sharing how they're feeling, you're sending a couple of messages to them. You're letting them know that you care about how they're feeling. You're letting them know that you have feelings because you're sharing it both ways, but you're also helping them to really think about naming their emotion. That's one of the benefits of that particular mood meter that Latrell shared earlier, is that it does have words on them. There are some that don't have words. They just use the colors. There's some that use emojis. So it really depends on what your child is ready for. But if we start building their emotion vocabulary, they will have an easier time naming how they're feeling. And if they can name it, they have a better time of managing it. So that's something we also practice in my house periodically. I won't say every day, but periodically we'll just pull vocabulary words related to emotions. I have a little deck of cards. And if they don't know what the word is, then I try to explain the word to them. If they do know what the word is, then they'll tell me like situations where you might feel that. So just trying to build their emotion vocabulary. So if you have other ideas about positive ways to start your day, drop that in the chat box, please. And Latrell, if you have any you want to add before we move to during the day, please do so. You're muted.
Sorry, I feel like you covered that beautifully. We do love the check-ins and having a routine, because I feel like it kind of just makes us have a better day here too when we're operating in a routine. I did want to point out, you all, and we probably will go over about 10 minutes, but I did want to point this out, that Miss White with Guilford Parent Academy, she said that they are doing a drawing for a Kindle Fire, and they gave one out this morning too. So if your child attends a Title I school, please put your school name and your name in the chat. So we'll be doing that drawing at the very end. And so that's coming up soon. So just bear with us just a little bit longer.
It's 7 o'clock.
Right.
I'm gonna speed up, but I want to get to a couple more ideas for you. And if you have to go, we completely understand. We'll keep talking to each other and sharing with each other, and whomsoever will. So during the day strategies, so engaging practices at school is helping students have access to the learning in a way that meets their needs. But the engaging practices at home is about connecting as a family, making sure that we build in that time to strengthen our relationships with each other, get to know each other at a deeper level, and make sure that your children are completely clear that you are the safest place for them, that you are a safe place. When we were doing the emotions things with my kids, I had to tell them that you don't always have to share a positive feeling emotion. You can share those feelings, those emotions that might not feel so good, whether it's in our whole group conversation or if you want to talk to me or daddy one-on-one, but that we're safe for you to share that with. And so during these connections allows them that space to do so. And so engaging in family conversations is a good one, whether it's a deep conversation or something fun and silly. If you're sharing, if you were on a deserted island, what 3 things would you bring with them? And just, it's just fun and silly. And you really do get to learn some things about them, even from the silly ones. And then some of the serious ones, we have one where I asked the kids to share, this goes with the emotion example I was just talking about, where they had to share their saddest moment. And so everybody shared their saddest moment, and it did end up in some tears and some healing and some hugging. But it was a good experience for building family to have that conversation. For us, we do those conversations around our dinner table. You might want to do your conversation right before bed. You might have a certain time of day that works for you. Maybe mornings are better for your family, but having those conversations periodically, we don't do them every single day, but we do them pretty regularly because they are so used to it now that if I don't initiate it, they will. Play together, what that means, whatever you do for fun. So you don't literally have to get down on the floor and play with your kids, but if it's board games, riding bikes, going for a walk in the park, playing what is it, hopscotch, whatever it is that you do for fun, singing songs, dancing to TikTok videos, do something fun together, laugh together. That definitely builds relationship, but that ability to laugh builds resilience. So as you're actually helping them with their self-management when you're doing things to make you laugh and find joy. And then the last one is engage in shared activities, whether you like to craft or cook. If your kids help you cook, if they help you clean the house, if they help out in the garden. So those type of activities together, again, is building bonding and building relationship and creating a space that's safe for them. So again, I'm going to ask you to drop any ideas you have in the chat box. And I'm also going to pause for my partner, Latrell, to share any ideas that she has. But I'm looking for y'all's ideas so I can steal some.
No, I think you always cover such amazing ideas, Cynthia. One of the things that I'm trying to incorporate, or I'm going to start trying to incorporate, is like the concept of reading together, like just dropping the devices, letting the Roblox go. I don't know if anybody else has any kids that are addicted to Roblox right now, but just dropping the devices and really just having a time where we are, reading either for fun or educational purposes, and then maybe even being able to talk about like what it is that we're reading. So I know, like we used to do, drop everything. I don't know if some schools are still doing that, drop everything and read. I want to do that and incorporate that in home. I see in the chat box, we have someone says, my daughter and I go on Pinterest to get ideas on different activities we can do together. So we got a DIY family. I love it. I love that. What has been very special time with my son during this pandemic is lap swimming at the YMCA. Y'all are on it. And I see another person says that I have no meeting time at work from 12 to 1:30 every day. So my son and I enjoy lunch together and watch a show we both like that sparks conversation. Right now it's Russ Bros. Hello, so I'm gonna have to check that out.
Awesome.
And then I love that. I love those. Those are great ideas.
Yeah, awesome. I'm still in the Pinterest idea. I love that. The lunch one just warms my heart.
I know, it's so great.
I can't swim, so the lap one is out for me. Okay, so the last one is how you end the day. So in school, that's optimistic closures, and that means closing the day in a way that allows for reflection. It allows students to take that learning and kind of let it sink in and reflect on it. But it's also leaving in a positive way where they want to come back, and leaving in a positive way where they felt like they had a good day. And we end all of our sessions with optimistic closures as well. So at home, what that could look like is having a reflective bedtime routine. So having a routine serves the same purpose as when I said morning routine. When they know what to expect, it just breeds safety. But having an opportunity to reflect, whether that's thinking back, just talking back about how your day went, what was the best part of your day, what would you do differently if you had the chance, or it could be reflecting on the intentions that you set for that day, if it was a single day type of intention, but just some point of really kind of bringing closure to your day before going off to sleep. It'll help them sleep better. If there's something on their mind that might keep them awake, then that's a great time for that to come out. And also a time to set new goals. So if they're reflecting and they want to set goals, that could turn into the intention for the next morning, or they may have obstacles and challenges that happen during the day that they want to do something about the next day. An example might be if they had a negative experience with a friend, they might want to go back the next day and apologize or talk to the friend and kind of work out that situation. So that it might be totally separate from the other types of intention. And finally, another time to check in with their emotions and how they're feeling. And if you really, if you're hearing things when your kids are checking in, that it's becoming a pattern or it's something that you find concerning, you can help them think through how to problem solve that. And again, that's going to help them sleep better if you kind of close that up at night, instead of them going to bed thinking about being in a space with a negative emotion that might keep them awake at night. But those are three of ours for the end of the day. And again, if you want to drop some ideas in the chat box, that would be awesome.
Yeah, like share what your bedtime routine is for, for what's happening in your household. And right now, like, we really don't want it to be a space where you're like, oh gosh, I'm supposed to do this at the start of the day. I'm supposed to do this during the day. Did I do this? Did I check this? It's really about having intentional conversations, like, with your kids about where they are emotionally, right? And so eventually what'll happen, like, we kind of broke it down like this, just to kind of give you like an idea, because we use the 3 signature practices with our educators. And so we wanted to kind of break it down for you at home as to like things that you could do. But it's really just like intentional conversations, intentional activities that you're probably, I'm sure, already engaging in, but it just allows you to see like the benefit of continuing to do that, right? And so in making sure that routine is in place, making sure that you're having a moment to check in with your kid regarding their emotions. And I put this in the chat box, and I feel very strongly about this, that emotionally resilient kids become emotionally resilient adults. And that is so, so, so important. So I could beat that. Like, I could keep talking about that. So
I was just sitting here thinking about older kids, like high school kids and college kids. They benefit from these routines as well. And so thinking about what that might look like for your older kids and having conversations with them and check-ins with them, and the value that I think that they would see in that is that you care enough to check in with them and want to know how they're feeling. I do want to highlight from the chat box, Jenny shared that she wants to come up with something for her younger 2, but with her 9-year-old, she does her daily devotional they do their daily devotional together at bedtime, and it always strikes up conversations as well. That sounds beautiful. So that's great. Maybe something similar with your younger 2 with a book that you can read. And then, somebody popped up another idea that looked like it might be what I was about to say. But my kids get downtime from 6 to 7 to play or be on their iPads on their pads doing their fun little games. At 7, it's full-on routine with brushing teeth, getting changed, winding down, then selecting 2 books for the youngest, who is in kindergarten, and the older one in 2nd grade with her chapter books. We do the 2 smaller books with alternating reading pages or words for recognition. I understand. And then the older alternating reading pages for 2 chapters. That's awesome. I remember that alternating thing because I was an elementary teacher. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And that's similar to what I was going to suggest with the younger kids, is you can do a book and have a conversation with them through your read aloud. Thank you all for sharing that. I know we're just about out of time, but I wanted to make sure that you had those tips. The last little bit that we want to talk about, we're going to kind of breeze through it because we want to definitely stop at the 10 minutes we said, but it's about self-care, and we're going to cover self-care when we do the self-management. We put it in this one because we know that we're in spaces right now when we need to put additional attention on our self-care. And so when we get to self-management, we're going to talk about self-care as a practice, but not just waiting until we're in a red state for days and days and like, oh my gosh, now I need to pause some self-care. There's some things that we can do with mindfulness that will help you be a little bit more resilient when you find yourself in those spaces. So we'll revisit the dimensions of self-care, which are 8 different areas that we want to think about our self-care. So it's not just about making sure I'm eating healthy and sleeping healthy, but I'm also managing my relationships and my finances and my nature, my connection to nature. So we will come back to this if you join us again for self-management. We'll talk about this self-care plan. This self-care plan is one we would encourage you to create, and that's thinking ahead of time about what you can do on a regular basis to keep yourself in a great space. And that's a part of self-care, and then you can continue to add to it as you continue to learn more strategies and more ideas when we get to self-management. But with this particular one, and there are lots of models out there, but for this particular one, we're asking you to think about what you do to take care of your mind, what you do to take care of your body, and what you do to take care of your spirit. And then in the 2 boxes, we're saying, who are those people that can help you in this work? So when you find yourself in red, and I was in red and blue for several days, maybe weeks, and it was harder and harder to pull out, I knew I needed to call on people. And so Latrell is one of the people I call on almost every day. My mother and my sister I call on almost every day. But you got to have people that you can count on, and think about also who counts on you, and reaching out to them and letting them know that you're there for them. And then what are your goals is on the box on the right, is what would you like to try to accomplish. So we'll share strategies for these in the next 2 sessions. And here's a blank one that we'll make available to you so that you can start putting some ideas on that self-care chart. And you can, like I said, if you don't want to use this one or wait for us to try to figure out how to get it to you, you can just do it in a journal. But you really want to be intentional about taking care of yourself, because you cannot take care of other people if you're not taking care of yourself. And so for our optimistic closure, we want to think a little bit about self-care. Self-care is not about self-indulgence, it's about self-preservation. And that's a quote from Audre Lorde. And the quote on the previous pages, I should have read that one because this is one of our favorite quotes as well. But true self-care is not salt baths and chocolate cake. It's making the choice to build a life you don't need to regularly escape from. We don't want to regularly escape from our lives. We want to build a system of self-care so that we can enjoy life. So we do want you to think about, to share as our optimistic closure, we want to give one, get one. So we want you to give an idea for self-care in the chat box, and we want you to take from the chat box an idea of something that you can commit to doing over the next day, week, or month to help you with your self-care. So we'll pause for a moment and let you think of your ideas, and just jot one in the chat box. I'm going to jot my favorite one in there right now, an idea for self-care. So my favorite one is meditating and breathing. Somebody else said meditate, join me. Meditating and breathing. You can find lots of videos to guided meditation and breathing on YouTube. If you happen to also be an educator, the Calm app is available for educators for free. If you're not an educator, I don't want to endorse something that costs you money, but because they have the free ones. But if you are an educator, you can get that Calm app for free, but there's a ton of them on YouTube for free. I saw some on podcasts too. So we're getting some ideas in the box. Let me start calling out. Help me call out, Latrell.
Sure. So I see retrospection. Let's see, following sessions like this for ideas. Let's see. Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. Taking time to read for myself. I put stepping away from the computer.
That's so good.
Stepping away from the computer. Bryce has, I like to go outside hiking, biking, kayaking. Someone says, my self-care is putting on headphones and listening to my music really, really loud. I like that, Donna. I like that. Let's see. Joe says, when feeling frazzled, take 3 slow breaths. We're going to talk about that.
I like that.
So you might be able to do this session with us. Take 3 slow breaths and reflect on what matters.
I love that part. That reflect on what matters. I love it.
We're going to talk about mindful breathing in some upcoming sessions. You all are having some amazing ideas. There's a few more in here. Quiet
calm
time.
App buddy. I got a calm app buddy.
You got a calm app buddy?
Yes. Hammock time calm app is great. Kids love to do kids yoga and get me involved, which is a lot of fun. Yay. Thank y'all for sharing those ideas.
And then someone said checking in with the feelings chart. Like Nikki said, checking in with the feelings chart. And Christina said finding something creative and expressive. So yes, love, 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 love it. Thank you so much. Quiet time
to do some reflection. I'm a reflective type of person too. Taking time for reading. I think we read those. Thank y'all for sharing those. I hope you saw one that you could take and use for yourself. I'm gonna add that that focusing on what's important in life to my breathing. I like that. It might actually help me focus better too. I like that. So I hope you found one to steal. Thank you all for letting us stay a little bit past the time. In just a second, we're gonna pass it back to GPA so they can choose a winner for that, what is it, a fire that they're giving out? But I do want, so I do want to ask you all to help us with feedback, because we do respond to feedback, and this is a series, so your feedback will help us to change up whatever we need to change up for the next few sessions. So you can either take a picture of the QR code or you can capture the bit.ly at the bottom. If you need either of us for anything, you can also take a picture of this screen that has our email addresses on it. And it also has our Twitter handle. So that first one is Latrell's, that middle one is our department's, and the last one is mine. And we tweet out different ideas and strategies as we come across them. So if you're still looking for additional ideas, please follow us. Again, there's our emails. I will go back to the feedback slide. And so again, we want to thank y'all for indulging us and allowing us to go a little bit over and sticking with us. We'll try to do better next week, but we have so much to share. We just really want to make sure that you get all that we have to offer, and hopefully you heard something that will help you on your journey. So before we give it back to GPA, Latrell, you want to say your goodbyes?
Yeah, so I just hope that y'all really come back and hang out with us next week. I feel like this was the introduction. And so if you were like thinking like, oh, this was like kind of good, or it was okay, I promise you next week will be even 10 times better than this, right? And so like, we're just excited about this opportunity in the space. And I just want to like hug yourself real tight for even being here, and pat yourself on the back as a parent for even being here and wanting to grow and do better. And for us to like grow together as parents. Allison, thank you, Allison. Allison put the blank self-care sheet in the chat box for us. So Allison then went and found the sheet for us. So Allison put that in the chat box. So we appreciate you, Allison. You are awesome. And we just appreciate all your positive feedback. And again, we hope that we see you all next week. Tell your friends, tell everybody. They are giving out Kindle Fires on here. So now I don't know if that's happening every week, so let me stop talking. But GPA, thank you so much. Ms. White, we'll turn it back over to you.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Latrell and Cynthia, you did an awesome, awesome, awesome job. Like always, we are so excited to have our parents here tonight. And I went through it this morning, but going through it again, I was just on the phone with my college student, Cynthia, and said, I'm checking in with him. And I do that on Sundays typically, but he had a knee injury for football. So, you know, he needed to check in. So that's why I didn't have my camera on, but you know what? We have to take care. We have to teach this. And I think for me, for 17 years with being a social worker, CPS social worker for 17 years, I learned that along the way, you know, to make sure that I was emotionally sound and to teach that and model that to my kids. It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to model that.
That's right.
Yes. Transparent. So this was a great one-on-one. I can't wait till next week, you know. And so it is Kindle time. Gabby is going to come on and she's going to give away our Kindle Fire. Just wanted to say thank you again. And she's put up. You see it? It's a brand new Kindle Fire. And she's gonna do a drawing. Gabby, I'm gonna give it to you.
Yes, hello everyone. This is the Kindle Fire that we're giving away. I have the parents that put their name and their school in the chat, and I am going to pull a name right now in front of you. Okay, 1 second.
Someone just added their name in the chat. I don't know if if it's too late, but I wanted to advocate for the person.
You see it, Gabby?
I see it. You want me to go ahead and add it real quick?
We're gonna add it right quick. We're gonna be fast.
Okay.
Add it right quick. Throw it in there. Give us a couple seconds, y'all. Thank you for bearing with us. All right, you ready,
Here
Gabby?
we go. Here's the basket. I'm gonna pull a name. Let's see.
It is Reedy Fork Elementary, Tate. All right, good job. Yay! So Gabby will be connecting with you so that we can get that Kindle Fire to you and your family. And yes, Cynthia and Latrell, we will be giving Kindle Fire away. Everybody to come. And not only are we giving Kindle Fire away, but we are giving great information that we can use at home. And so it's for our parents. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for participating tonight. It was excellent. Thank you again. And just have an awesome, awesome, awesome night.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
See you
guys.
next week.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye.